Let's paint these guys. First we'll use some Citadel contrast paint, blood red, to cover all the fabric area. Remember, we've got to work it in nicely, don't worry about being too neat. But you do need to move contrast paint around nice and quick, otherwise it looks a bit splotchy, like that does. We'll get a bit more on the brush and paint it a bit thicker and make sure we get it into those grooves. Work around the model and don't worry about being too neat. Just make sure that you're getting a good coverage and working the paint into the creases and the shadow areas. If you do go over any areas that you didn't mean to, like I've just done with the arm guard there, don't worry, we'll tidy that up a bit later. And now with a smaller brush we're going to apply some brown for the leather areas. I'm using Ruddy Fur by Army Painter, but you can use any sort of light brown. Again, try and be neat, but don't worry if a little bit of the brown spills over, it'll just create a shadow in the creases between the leather and the under armour. Later on we will be doing some of the straps in another shade of brown just to differentiate them from the other leather areas. Again, we're trying to be as neat as we can, but don't get too stressed. We can always tidy up mistakes later. So now we move on to doing the armour parts and the metal, and I use Vallejo dark aluminium for this, but you could also use lead belcher. You just need to water it down a little bit so you get decent coverage, but essentially we're just going to cover all the metal areas with this one colour. You'll see I've already done the face, so I used Peachy Flesh, which is another Army Painter speed paint, but use whatever flesh tone you want to use for your model. The important thing with metal is to try and be as neat as you can. Don't let it build up too much anywhere. And again, you can cover mistakes up, so don't stress too much about it, but try and be as neat as you can. The dark aluminium flows really nicely, which is why it's my metallic of choice, but like I say, you could also use something like lead belcher for this area. So now we're going to shade all of the metal and all of the red and the leather with Nuln Oil. As with all applications of inks, you just want to watch out for pooling and try and spread it around nicely. Try and get good coverage. Nuln Oil works really nicely with the Blood Angels red and also the dark aluminium. They really complement each other really nicely. So now we're just going to go back over the red areas with some Mephiston red. And we're not trying to cover every area that we just painted. We're not relayering. We're sort of trying to hit any raised areas. It's not quite highlighting because we're not going for edges. If we were doing a character model, we'd do another layer of Evil Sun Scarlet over the edges. This is just to bring the red out a little bit after we've dulled it down with the Nuln Oil. If we were doing a character, we'd be very neat and thorough, but these are rank and file, so we just want to be reasonably tidy. Now we're just going to use some Black Legion contrast, and we're just going to do the trim on his armour here. And again, be as neat as you can, but don't worry too much. If there is a little bit of an overspill, it'll just create a bit of a black line effect. Again, these guys are rank and file. You're going to be painting a lot of them, so whilst you want to be neat, you don't need to be too stressed if you do make any minor mistakes. No one's going to notice when they're all lined up in a big regiment ready to go. As you can see there, I've probably done that a bit too thick, but when it dries it'll just look like a shadow and you're not going to notice. We're also going to cover the underside here just to make it look a bit neater. And finally, I'm just going to use some Rhinox Hide on the leather straps just to tidy them up a little bit, make them look a little bit neater and darken things down a little bit. And we can just tidy up if we've spilt any of the metallic anywhere over the leather as well. We'll just tidy that up and make it look nice and neat. And there we go. It's not going to win a Golden Demon Award, but looks quite neat for a rank and file model. We'll just put a bit of Reikland flesh shade in the face area and just work it around so that it doesn't pool. and that will finish them off, and as a unit they look pretty good when they're out on the battlefield. Thanks for watching.